think you also wrote an article, and it's really interesting, the Browns 2025 quarterback wish list, and it involves, trade of number two. That's kind of the Godfather, the one you can't refuse. Shedeur Sanders at number two, and then the Kirk Cousins question. Take us through those.
Yeah, I think, still a proponent of listening to offers for that number two pick. And I think if you do that, it's of course in the Browns' best interest to want to talk up the top of this draft class. And I think what that offer would look like for me is maybe not only additional picks, but one or two key veterans. Like, truly, this is an offer that's almost unrealistic at this point. But I always think proven veterans, for the most part, are going to be better than rookies. And this just seems to be like a weaker draft class overall. Now, I think where maybe my thinking has changed on that a little bit is if you don't want to take a quarterback at number two, I do think Abdul Carter is a really great edge rusher and Travis Hunter is an athletic freak. I think those are two guys who would certainly be worthy of that number two pick. But if you can get more battle tested veterans in return for it, I would consider the deal. And then Kirk Cousins for me still almost remains the most feasible veteran option right now, mainly because there's a really good chance you're going to be able to get him on the cheap for closer to that veteran minimum number, maybe just over $1 million. And I think that might be a really good bridge scenario for the Browns. And obviously, Kirk Cousins has that built-in Kevin Stefanski familiarity. Those two worked really well together when they were in Minnesota. Kirk Cousins put up some career numbers working in a Kevin Stefanski offense. So that's kind of what led me there. And Shedeur remains, I think, the more interesting prospect between himself and Cam Ward to me. But I think a big part of that is we've just heard from and seen Shedeur a bit more than Cam Ward. No one's really heard from
Mm-hmm.
Cam Ward since the season ended. He wasn't at the Senior Bowl, wasn't at the Shrine Bowl, wasn't doing interviews there. So really, we're not going to get a chance to hear from him until the combine in 2 weeks. So almost exactly 2 weeks actually from when quarterbacks are due to talk. So I'm really curious to see how the narrative continues to shift there, but I think Shedeur has been kind of really impressive in how he's handled this draft process so far, and some of what we've seen from him in college, that, there's some worries there and some worries about his ceiling, but I also think there's kind of this element of him that no one really knows what to make of certain aspects of his game, and that could end up being a positive for him.
The more I hear him talk, the more I could see NFL guys kind of rallying around him. I just think he's a guy that players would really respect. The way he conducts himself, he's used to being the guy.
He is, and I think some of that is, of course, his pedigree too, right? And having Deion Sanders as his dad. And I think so many times you get guys that come in the NFL and you hear coaches and players themselves talk about needing to learn how to be a pro. And I think Shedeur is still going to have that, right? Just because he hasn't played in the NFL before. But when Deion Sanders is your father and you've been under intense scrutiny, because even though you didn't go to a quote unquote big time football school, you played with your dad as the coach at all of your college stops. I think that he that experience, I guess, makes him more pro ready to me, and just the football pedigree he comes from. I think he's going to know how to handle those sorts of things. And guys talk about struggling with that transition all the time, whether it's more attention, whether it's not having to worry about school and devoting truly so much of your time, almost all of your time, to football when you're in season. I think he's going to be more prepared and know how to better handle that than a lot of people.